Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Now, last week on Garage Ed, we talked about voltage. Quick review, that was pressure, electromotive force. We filled our fat here with voltage. Now we're going to talk about current and resistance. That's amp flow. What's going on is electrons are going to run, and I can show it to you in action. If I pull the plug, the electrons are going to run through here, and then it's going to do something in the form of work. That's called resistance. We're going to use this water wheel as resistance. That's like your fuel pump, wiper motors. Any component that runs has a resistance value, and that's a load. So watch, as I pull the plug, you can see the current. It's running through the water wheel, which is our resistance. As it spins the water wheel, it actually runs out as the voltage starts to run out. That's Ohm's law. Voltage and current's proportional with resistance. It goes down, this is going to go up, resistance goes up, it goes down. Now, to measure resistance, you can look at this graphic right here. You want to disconnect it from the circuit altogether, and you want to use a voltmeter. On our voltmeter, I'm going to go to the little horseshoe here, which is ohms of resistance. Now, I got all these components at RockAuto.com, variable valve solenoid, engine coolant temperature sensor, injector coil. They all have a form of resistance. And if I take my meter, I got it hooked up in resistance. I'm going to come over to my solenoid here. And if I go across the two terminals, what I'm actually measuring is the resistance value of the windings in there. It's 7.8. Now, what does that mean? Well, you'd have to look in your service manual to find out a specification. Rock Auto, under literature, you can even get the service manual so you can see what the spec's supposed to be, if it's good or bad, prior to doing some more diagnostics. Now, amps, look at this graphic. Amps, we have to do a couple things. We have to shunt the meter. Well, what does that mean? I'm going to come over and I'm going to switch it to amps down here, and then I'm going to take the positive lead and I'm going to move it over to this side of the meter. Well, because we're going to take the electrons and we're going to run them through the actual meter here. So I switch it over to amps, and then you can see I turn on our little board right here. I got this motor running. What I want to do is I want to disconnect the circuit here that's going to it, and in series I want to hook up this amp meter. So what's happening? Check it out. The motor's running. Well, those electrons are running through the meter here, and it's counting them. Now, there's two types of resistance. We can see right here. There's electrical resistance in our wires. They start to get hot, you got a problem, you start to do bad wiring like that, that's resistance, that's electrical resistance. You can see the wire right here, not much is going to run through that. That's not good. But there's also mechanical resistance. If I reach down here and I try to stop that motor, it starts to make a higher amp draw. Now, that's important when you start working on your car and you start getting components with mechanical resistance. I can demonstrate it right here for you with this fuel pump. Now, fuel pumps are a big amp draw. If I hook it up, I got my meter in series, I hook it up, it's actually running. The electrons are running through, and we're looking at 6.24 amps. That's fine. But let me simulate. Now, you don't want to do this at home. Don't go pinching your fuel line. But if I pinch this fuel line right here, you can watch that amp. Look at that. Thing's going up. I mean, it starts blinking on that meter. I don't want to go too high, but I can get that thing up to about 10 amps of amperage draw. What's that doing? Well, it's heating up that component. It's causing problems, maybe premature failure. You can see a fuel filter. This is a good fuel filter right here. And then if you got one that's clogged up, well, it's going to look like that, and that's going to cause a massive amp draw. That's a problem. So you guys don't want that. So make sure that you measure amps. Make sure that you make these tests on your car so you can keep your components lasting a long time. Now, Tom, he has all these components, and he's over the table. We'll check in with him. But before we do that, Brian wouldn't let me live it down. He built this engine a couple seasons ago, and it still runs.